It's an honor. It's an honor. I truly appreciate everything you're doing. I look forward to the information that you have to share. For the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know who you are and definitely where you're from?
Sure. I'm Kerri Cahoy. I'm a professor of aeronautics and astronautics at MIT, and I'm coming here to you from Massachusetts, from where we are at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay, cool, cool. I'm currently in Ghana, just so you know. We're not as technologically advanced, so if we get disconnected, I should pop right back on. But I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. So,
Okay.
okay, now I want to ask you this. Now, when did you actually develop a passion, for the profession that you're currently in?
Oh, I would say about fourth grade. I had this wild fourth grade teacher. She was great. She was very into creativity and art and expression, and she had us doing for the most part, book reports and presentations on things that interested us. And I picked the solar system planets and really just was really excited about reporting on the planets and learning about all the different atmospheres and the storm on Jupiter and exploration of Mars, which hadn't happened at that point. Um, and just really got excited about space then. And then later in college, I had to work to help pay for tuition. And one of the jobs that I had was in a lab with another professor named Steve Squires. And he's the one who kind of made the Spirit and Opportunity, the two twin Mars rovers, happen. And so I got to work a little bit on, first just taking notes and then getting more into the instrumentation and understanding what the rovers were trying to do on Mars to understand the formation of the rocks and whether or not there was water. And that was pretty exciting.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That sounds very exciting. Big shout out to your teacher, man. Teachers are important.
Yeah, shout out to Mrs. Rondo. She was awesome.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now I can ask you about the definition of some of the terms like aerospace, aeronautics, astronautics. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so aerospace is a combination of things that fly in Earth's atmosphere, like airplanes, some, rockets that are suborbital, missiles, things like that. And then things that fly in space. So rockets that go to space, which is above Earth's atmosphere. I think they pick 100 kilometers above the surface as where the space line is. It's called the von Karman line. And so they combine the terms to mean anything that flies in the air or goes to space because there are a lot of similar problems that we have to solve to make both of those kinds of vehicles work. So they're very challenging to operate remotely. They're very far away. They get really hot because there's not you can't put a fan on them and blow convection. When you get high at altitudes, there's not enough air to cool things down, so they get really hot, and there's a lot of thermal management issues. So I think they just kind of combine it together because you need some of the same skill sets to make vehicles work both in air and in space.
Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you breaking that down. So, is that in conjunction with like space system design, or is that a little bit different?
So space system design is really about mostly satellites or spacecraft or rockets. So that in that sense, that really focuses on the space part. Usually, it can be Earth orbiting spacecraft, or it can be spacecraft that go to what we call deep space, which is anything that is kind of like out beyond the moon. So things get harder the further out you go.
Okay, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, have you been in the outer space, or is that something you even want to do?
I haven't. It would be an interesting thing to try to do. I did get to do a zero gravity flight once, where they basically take an airplane and turn the airplane into more of an intentional, almost like a roller coaster ride, where they take the airplane and they take it up at a very steep angle and they come back down and they kind of have the airplane fly in very steep parabolas. And when it does that, you get this sensation of just being weightless for about 30 seconds at a time, sometimes a little longer. And that was a lot of fun. We can use it to test some of the equipment and instruments and things that we want to see will work in no gravity. But I haven't been on a rocket yet. It would be pretty cool to do.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Man, I only can imagine. I'm a world traveler. I've been to like 70 countries, but going into outer space, I can't even, man, fathom what that
70
would be
countries is
like.
a lot. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, I really enjoy traveling, going to new places, seeing new things, learning new cultures, but that's how to say it. Let me see. Now, how long would someone have to study if they wanted to, get to that level? Is it 4 years, 8 years? Is it longer than that?
Um, I would say somewhere between 4 and 8 would be about right. 4 years will get a lot of the kind of math and engineering that you need to be able to help with some of the design work on some of these platforms that you're building, some of the vehicle design. You can be, oh, I don't know, a mechanical engineer or an electrical engineer, or do programming, or be really interested in materials that will work in space. So those are all things that you can do in kind of 4 years of college. And then if you want to get a little bit more specialized, you could spend some time in graduate school and do a master's or PhD if you want to. And then maybe at that point, you might have enough knowledge to lead a mission to do something in particular that you wanted to try doing. So a lot of people are interested in human exploration or robotic exploration. We have missions now that are going to put basically UAVs, drones on Titan, which is a moon of Saturn, which will be really cool. And we did fly that little quadcopter Ingenuity on Mars. So like there are a lot of fun things that if you specialize a little bit more in in grad school, you could really contribute to some of those mission elements.
Okay, okay. I appreciate you sharing that. Now I wanted to ask you about the about STAR, the Space Telecommunication, Astronomy, and Radiation Laboratory. You are a part of that.
Yeah, yeah. So we named that after there was a lab that I was part of in graduate school that was also called Star Labs, and I understand there's a lot of comic references and things like that to Star Lab. But yeah, we wanted something that sounded very like it was about exploration, and that it contained some of the areas that our group is really interested in working in, which is getting one of our projects is having two very small satellites use lasers to talk to each other instead of radios. So that's the telecommunication part. And then the astronomy part is another thing that we do, is we put telescopes and build different kind of components for telescopes in space that'll help us do a better job of looking for planets like Earth around other stars. So seeing if there are other Earths out there. So that's more the astronomy part. So it was just kind of a mix of all the stuff we have going on. But space program people are all about acronyms, making words that use the first letter of all the words that are describe the system. So they have a lot of acronyms and a lot of special jargon that really confuse people, but but they like them.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to break it down. I mean, it all sounds very interesting, but sometimes it's so many terms, and you like, what is that, or what is this, and it might be the
We are
same
all
thing
over
or
that.
something different.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So let
And
me
sometimes they
see.
use the same word for like three things, and you're like, well, which one did you mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
hmm Now let me see. Now you had mentioned one of the projects that y'all was working on. How long does a project like that take? Is it a couple months, a couple years, or?
Usually, I want to say a couple years, but usually it's more like 4 or 5. We get really ambitious and we think we can do something in just a couple years, but it always takes longer because you have to order the things. Sometimes they come in wrong, sometimes they break. People graduate, people leave and move on and come back. Like, so there's a lot that changes over time that ends up making things take a little bit longer. So it's usually 4 or 5 years is a more accurate estimate. I'd love to say we could do it in 2 years, but It's more like 4 or 5.
Okay. Now I wanted to ask you. You had I believe it was a TED talk, and you was kind of talking about how the satellites can be used for hurricanes.
Mhm.
What
Yeah,
you thought
so
about that?
there's a special kind of instrument that you know how most of us have radio or know about radio and antennas, right? So it turns out you can build an antenna that is sensitive enough to listen to molecules in the atmosphere vibrate. Like if you have water vapor in the atmosphere, it like has a natural vibration to that molecule. And you can build an antenna that's tuned to just pick up on that vibration. And when you do that, you can sense the temperature of all these different molecules. So you basically know what you're measuring temperature of these different molecules at different heights in the atmosphere. So it's kind of like making a map of where water vapor and oxygen are and what their temperatures are. And that helps us go into like those weather forecasting models and helps us understand when the hurricanes form, what their temperature structure is like, and do a better job of predicting like where the storm is going to go and whether or not you have to worry about it coming your way or not and preparing for it. So those are measurements that you can make from these what they're called microwave radiometers, these special antenna systems that listen to the vibrating molecules and tell you the temperatures. It's really cool. But the frequencies they listen to are really high frequencies. They're not like what we use for FM radio. They're much higher. They're like gigahertz, tens to hundreds of gigahertz. So they're pretty high frequencies that they're sensitive to. So you build these special radios and antenna systems to listen to the molecules vibrate, um, which is kind of crazy to think about. But then your microwave in your house, all it does is really get water molecules to vibrate really well, and that's what heats your food up, right? So I can connect microwaves in your house to
Yeah.
things
I'm
that are
sure the
under.
people can relate. They can definitely relate. I mean, that's very cool, but at the same time, I mean, you could save a lot of lives, doing that. That's
Absolutely.
phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Now I can ask you, I don't know if you keep count, but how many projects have you actually been a part of, and how many of them actually got a chance to go up in space?
Oh, well, I think I would I haven't kept close count, so I might be off by a couple here. But there have been 4 that I've worked with in our lab that have flown on orbit and worked mostly as we wanted them to. Nothing's ever perfect, right? And then, so some of those have been demonstrating different types of new optical components and doing lasers. So we did a laser downlink from orbit to a telescope on the ground with a very tiny satellite, and then these weather sensors, these antennas for storm tracking. So those are all fun missions, but there are always a couple that don't work too. Space is pretty hard. Not everything works all the time. Sometimes the things can break at many different levels. So things can break when the rockets launch. Sometimes they don't go to the right places. Sometimes they don't get off the ground, and that's really sad. Sometimes they do get off the ground and your satellite gets into space, but then it doesn't work the way you want it to, and you can't go get it back to fix it. It's there and it's broken, and try again next time. So you have to kind of be mentally tough and be willing to fight back and get through the depression of, oh man, after all that work, I put it up there and it didn't work. And, you're just really bummed for a while. And then you're like, all right, well, what could have gone wrong? And how would I fix it? And if I did it again, and then sometimes you get the chance to do it again. And sometimes it's kind of game over and you have to move on.
Wow, but I mean, to even have a project to even get off the ground, that's
Mhm.
phenomenal. I
Yeah.
definitely understand.
I had
Um,
a
mhm.
student once that was she was really one of my favorite students, Annie, and we were watching a rocket launch, and we weren't sure if the satellite was going to work or not because it was one of our very first ones. And standing there next to her, and she's like, "Well, it's a satellite now." Because satellite is by definition anything that goes into orbit. So regardless of whether it worked or not, she was like, well, at least it's a satellite. I was like, yes, Annie, like it got up there. It's a satellite. So we hope it works, but getting it up there, just getting that to happen is pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, it sounds like it's a very rewarding and empowering, field to be in. Now, I can ask you, now, what is the most difficult part? Is it the hardest part getting it off the ground, or getting it to stay where it's supposed to be, or doing what it's supposed to do?
I think the hardest part is, yeah, getting it ready to meet the rocket launch on time and keeping everybody kind of engaged and working on it. People get It's hard. People get really tired and burned out, if you're working on these projects and you've got a deadline because these we don't we don't buy the rockets ourselves. We're kind of like rideshare. We buy a spot on the rocket, but the rocket's going to go whether we're on it or not. And if we're not on it, they're just going to put basically a brick that weighs the same as our satellite and send it up. No joke. They're not going to wait for you. It's kind of like missing your flight. So I think one of the more stressful parts is knowing that you've been manifest on this rocket launch, and you somebody's paid for your spot. Usually whoever your sponsor is, and if you don't make it, you don't get to go. So a lot of the times there's a big rush to try to make it, and there's never enough time to do all the testing you want to. So I think that's that period of like trying to rush to make the launch, is the hardest part.
Wow. Okay. I appreciate you sharing that, because a lot of times, the average person, we take it for granted how much work it takes to make that perfect launch. It's
Yeah, the launches are great. I think people don't realize that the cost of going to space is mostly paying for the people to do the work to get all the testing and all the proper paperwork ready and licensing to go up to be able to operate in space. A lot of people think, oh, you're just paying for the hardware, but really you're paying for the people's time to do the work. That's part of the hard part, is just planning around that the right way. But rockets are like unicorns, man. They are really hard to um, it's really hard to watch the rocket launch that you want to watch launch, because they never launch when you think they're going to launch. Um, so once you deliver to and your spacecraft is on the rocket and they're like, all right, like you're going to go to Virginia, or you're going to go to Florida, or you're going to go to Vandenberg, California, you're going to watch this rocket launch. You can go out there, and then they scrub the launches all the time. I don't know if you've tried to see a rocket launch, but they scrub for weather. They won't, something technical won't be set up perfectly, and they get stopped in the countdown, and they have to like reset everything and go try again another day. So I would say that's one of the hardest parts, is also if you really want to see the rocket with your thing on at launch, is like blocking your schedule and like coming back day after day after day, hoping that it's a good day and the rocket will go off that day, because they don't always go off on the first try. Sometimes it takes like 2 weeks. So that's another thing that I think people don't realize, is how long it takes sometimes to just watch it go off. They take a while. People want to be really careful about launching rockets.
Yeah, man. If you got anxiety, man, whew, I can only imagine. Now, is it a time frame where they tell you like, okay, well, you have a year or you have months, or is it just like a short notice, like you gotta get it?
It's usually you've got about a year. A year's because you need to get a special license to use radios in space on your spacecraft, and if you have a camera, you have to get a special license to be able to take pictures from space. So all those license processes take about a year. So they really do need to let you know about a year in advance, otherwise you'll never get like all your paperwork checked off. It's like you have to get special passports for your satellite to get to go to space so you can use it. So
Wow. So you saying you need a license to take pictures in outer space?
yep. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Isn't that
You
crazy?
learned something new. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Now I can ask you, uh, with the rocket ships, do y'all collaborate with NASA, or is it strictly through the college, or who does all of that?
Yeah, it's usually with NASA. NASA has companies that they work with that help work with universities to get our projects on the rockets. Like one of them is called Nanoracks that we really like working with. And so these companies help you kind of size your spacecraft and make sure it's the right size and that it's balanced the right way so that when it goes into the deployer on the rocket, it'll work and nobody will be worried about it. So it's usually with NASA, and usually there's a company in between us and NASA that's kind of helping with the organization and the details.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Now you founded a company, Space Ray.
Yeah.
What is that
So
exactly?
so Space Rig, there are a few things that we're working on that we're not quite talking about yet. But the idea of it is to kind of grow our ability to communicate in an aerospace environment better. One of the challenges with being at MIT, I love being at MIT. Don't get me wrong. It's a lot of fun. There are some really amazing people that I am awed by all the time. But the students graduate every couple years. So every 2 or 3 years, my entire team turns over, and I have to start all over again. So at least with a company, one of the nice parts about a company is that people can stay there for longer, and we can maintain our knowledge base and our memory of what we've been doing and what we're working on for a little longer than when people graduate every couple of years. But we're working on communications for aerospace platforms, and we're working on just making data from space more available to people who would like to use it. It's kind of hard to get data from space these days, and know what to do with it and know what it's used for. So we wanted to help break that down.
Wow. Okay. That's very interesting. But I mean, you make a good point. You forget to think about that the students they moving on and going into their careers.
And I'm, like I
Yeah.
turn into this grumpy old professor because like I forget that the students that I knew 10 years ago have no idea, like that my current students have no idea who these other students are. But to me, they're all part of my family. And so I'll be talking to them about these other people, and they're like, this crazy lady keeps going on about these people. I have no idea who she's talking about, but like she keeps talking about her old students, and they've never met each other, right? They're totally different years and generations, but to me, they're all like my family, and so it's kind of funny.
Yeah, but that's a good thing. I mean, you're passionate about what you're doing, and you getting to thoroughly know the students, and you think about them when they go and maybe work with some in the future.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
real cool. So how many years have you been teaching?
Oh gosh, I've been at MIT since 2011, so about 13, 14 years now. So yeah, it's definitely, and I've been doing space research since um, probably 97. So I'm getting up there. Definitely turning into crazy old professor for sure. Um,
Okay, but that's inspiring. I mean, for you to do it that long, I mean, man, you doing what you love to do. You doing what you want to do. You making
yeah.
your mark in the world, or you have already. You're influencing people and inspiring people. Now, I can ask you, do you have any other projects in the works? You ever do like books or documentaries or anything like that?
Yeah, so I'm trying to work a little bit on a space systems book, which is one of the things that I'm looking forward to doing. Just kind of examples and making it kind of straightforward for people. I haven't done any documentaries, but that would be interesting to do. And I keep playing with the idea of writing books. I love reading and writing, and sometime when I have time, I'll try to get back to that. But right now, I have all these students and their theses, and they're all a couple hundred pages, and we have to write papers and conference presentations, so they keep me busy. But maybe sometime in the future.
Wow. Okay. Now I can ask you. Let me see. Maybe one more question. Now, by you actually being in the field and doing the research, how does it compare to maybe some of the things we see on TV or in the movies, or is it like totally different, or do they get it right sometimes?
They get it right sometimes. They get it right sometimes, not all the time, and but I think the important part to me is getting the imaginations and the emotions right. Like if you really engage people and you get them excited about this vision of what could be that we could work toward, then if you get every technical detail right, I don't really care, because it's really the inspiration that's important to me, is like making people feel like it's has value to them and it's meaningful to understanding where they are and helping us all connect. Does that make sense? Like so I'm not gonna kind of be laughing and pointing fingers if they get like the tech stuff wrong. Um, and occasionally they get it really right, and sometimes that's some of the cooler, I don't know, kind of like detective moments when they're trying to like, reverse engineer something and they actually do get the explanation right, and you're like, yeah, that would have been why. That's really cool that they put that together that way. But for me, the more important thing is just the inspiration, and making sure that it gets people thinking about ways to make the most of our time while we're alive, and kind of understanding why we're here, what we're doing here, what else is around us, and what might happen going forward. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's the most important thing, utilizing the time, taking advantage of it, and inspiring people. So yeah, we're about 30 minutes in. So I really, really appreciate you for coming on the platform again. You shared a lot of information, so my mind is still processing it, but I'm sure the viewers as well appreciate you. The things that you have already done and the things that you continue to do.
well, thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate what you're doing too with inspiring conversations and communication around a bunch of different ideas and people, and helping everyone connect. That's really cool, and hope you continue expanding your horizons with countries, but I don't know what you're going to do when you run out.
Right, right.
Very grateful.
Yeah, definitely. I might have to, I don't know, get into space or something, because I'm always motivated and I enjoy having these conversations because I want to learn. I want to learn. And I want the viewers to learn too, because sometimes it could get monotonous. You keep interviewing musicians. So,
Exactly. Oh, music's awesome though, so I don't mind that.
right, right. Definitely, definitely. So, yeah, I appreciate you and I appreciate the viewers for tuning in. It's been a phenomenal episode. So, until
All right.
next time, peace.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Take care. Yeah.